Hey guys, welcome to the Manchester United News channel. Subscribe to the channel to not miss any news, leave your like, and share, you are very important for the growth of the channel. Let's go to the video.
Let's get cracking with the show. We're going to start by talking about your team, Man United. Disappointing week, as we touched upon. 3-1 defeat, yeah, sorry about that, at home to Brighton. 13th in the Premier League, and that was followed up by a 4-3 defeat to Bayern Munich. Great game, that, I will say, by the way, midweek. There's a lot of debate on social media. There seems to be a lot of different aspects at Man United that people are unhappy with it. I think that's fair to say. So it gave us an idea for a feature, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we do this once a season at this stage, Man United, but we've got Cam on the show, obviously, massive Manchester United fan. We've got the Saturday Social whiteboard out, and you're going to be ranking what you think are the 5 biggest problems facing the club right now. We did this last year as well with Mark Goldbridge. Yeah. Very similar 5 problems, but we've got Cam back again. Yeah. You know, we want to see from 5 upwards. Yeah. Let's start with 5, actually.
The reverse order.
Reverse order. What do you think, you know, in 5th spot, what's affecting United the most at the moment? Because it's not going well.
There's so much that's wrong with United, that's why we're doing this. But I'm going to start with injuries.
Ooh. Okay.
I'm going to put injuries as 5. I know a lot of United fans, in my opinion, they're kind of using injuries as an excuse for what's going on this season. I wouldn't say it's a massive, massive factor personally, because I saw the way United started this season. We had Varane fit, Luke Shaw was out, Mason Mount was in there. Wolves could have scored 10 goals. So it started like the season wasn't going to go well anyway. The Spurs game too, in the end, Spurs ended up dominating the second half while we had a lot of fit players. So I know the injuries of Varane, Luke Shaw, and some of these guys. Mainu is somebody that we're all excited about, you know, all the Man United fans. But at the end of the day, he hasn't started a Premier League game in his career. So for us to be, you know, basically begging for an 18-year-old to come and save our season, it pretty much shows the position that Man United are in at the moment. So I do think injuries is a factor, which is why it's on the board, but I wouldn't say it's our biggest issue.
Theo, what's your thought when you see injuries? Because it's the kind of thing, when you see that on social, a lot of people go, yeah, fully justifiable, and I've got their injury list in front of me, and it is bad. There's a lot of players out. Or do you look at that and go, well, that's just part and parcel of the game? Everyone has injuries.
Well, Chelsea are in a similar boat of injuries as well, I feel like injuries are probably the easiest to blame for poor performances, but inevitably it's always, well, I guess you'll come on to talk about, it's normally the higher up you go is where you actually find the deep-rooted problems.
It does feel like United, though, consistently have these injury problems. Yeah. Obviously, I feel like every fan says that, though, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the players. There's some players you can't lose, and it will affect you. If Spurs lost Basuma, that would be catastrophic, and that's just one injury. 12 is insane. It's 12, right? The first team players. Yeah. It's a massive part of the issue, but there are wider issues at United for sure.
Okay. Let's go for number 4 then.
Okay, number 4. I think people ain't going to like this one, but I'm going to go with the manager.
Oh, damn.
I got to go with the manager because, look, my issue with Erik Ten Hag at the moment is identity. You know, I'm looking at Man United, the way we play the game, and I still, when I watch United, I'm confused at what we're planning to do. Are we trying to be a high-pressing team? Are we trying to be a possession team? Are we trying to be aggressive? Are we trying to be a counter team? At the moment, it's still like we're in the middle of all of them. And when I look at Spurs, Ange has come in 5 games, and I'm seeing an identity. I'm seeing a way of playing, the excitement. I'm looking at Spurs fans now. You guys are absolutely buzzing. You know what I mean? I never used to see this. I never seen this before. You know what I mean? So they're absolutely buzzing. You look at Arteta, you look at City, you look at Liverpool. You can close your eyes and know how these teams are playing. With Manchester United, it's we're going game by game. And it's still a year in now. And I expect to see some form of identity for United, because that is why we brought Ten Hag in. When we were linked with Contes and all these type of managers, it was, no, he's the one, possession football, high technical ability. And when I look at Man United, I'm like, I don't know what we're trying to do on the pitch.
I have to say, though, do you think, obviously you mentioned a manager like Mikel Arteta there, who now has a very clear philosophy, but there was that spell, wasn't there, in his start of his first season or start of his second season, where he went for, I think it was an 8 or a 9 game spell where you couldn't win a game, and people were levelling similar accusations.
No, there was full-scale Arteta out. Let's not get it twisted.
By certain individuals.
But every Arsenal fan apparently wasn't Arteta out. It's infuriating. You was, at some stage, questioning whether or not he was his manager.
That's just blasphemy. I've never been Arteta. I love the man. He's like my second father.
I'm not saying Theo Baker. I'm saying, as an Arsenal fan base, at one point, all of you said, is he right for the job? When you lost 3 games at the first start of the season.
So is it the same narrative now with United?
I don't think it's as bad.
There's more problems as well, I feel like, at United than, for example, when Arteta wasn't maybe not performing as a manager. There was deeper problems at this club compared to Arsenal at the time.
But I think with the Arteta situation, it's become a little bit of a fallback for United fans to be like, well, Arteta took 4 years. It's the same thing we were saying under Oli. Under Oli, we were saying, well, it took Klopp 4 years to win a trophy, and then Oli ends up leaving with no trophies. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think you can always follow the blueprint of other clubs. At the time, Arteta, yes, he maybe should have, people should have said he should have went, but Arsenal stuck with him. But United is a different type of club, and you look at the situation with like Jadon Sancho, the way Cristiano Ronaldo left the club, De Gea left the club in a bit of a weird circumstance. He thought he was staying, he ended up going.
Do you think he got those decisions wrong? Because at the time, I think most football fans would have said you handled the Cristiano Ronaldo situation quite well. That was a difficult situation to handle. Potentially, Manchester United fans as well were also asking for Maguire to be stripped of the captaincy. He didn't want him to play. Ten Hag did that. So now, is it a bit of revisionism?
No, but my situation is like, if you're going to make these big decisions, I agreed with the Ronaldo one, and United went on to win a cup, and that way you could be like, it's justifiable. People often say, you know, disciplinary, like when you discipline players, Jose did it, Fergie did it, but the difference between these guys is they continue winning. You know, look at Pep Guardiola, he got rid of Cancelo, we win the treble, it doesn't matter. So everyone's going to believe and follow you and follow your lead. Same with Aubameyang and Arteta. But the situation with us is that once we start losing games, I promise you, players will start looking sideways and being like, this gaffer, mate, he's a bit... Do you know what I mean? And that's what I'm kind of concerned. Is he going to lose the dressing room? And it kind of feels like that at the moment.
I was thinking, as you were talking there, has there been many managers that have had to deal with the problems that Ten Hag has? But then you look at Arteta, and he had player issues, and he solved them.
Aubameyang,
he solved every single one and got to a position where there was a squad that respected him and fell in line with the way he wanted to do.
There were still question marks, even amongst the Arsenal fan base, when, you know, Ozil first happened, Aubameyang first happened, and, you know, when Aubameyang was sold and then they didn't make top 4, there were still question marks of, hang on, was that the wrong decision? There were pundits saying, with his goals, we would have made top 4. Yeah. I feel like it's very similar sort of narratives now, that things are going slightly wrong. Everybody's saying that was the wrong decision. But at the time, we can all look back now and say it was the right decision.
Arsenal and Arteta then went on to make the right signings in the recruitment. And I think if you look at the players Ten Hag's brought in, they're not really stepping up at all.
No.
Like, the players they're bringing in to replace these other players are just arguably not even upgrades.
OK, well, we've got... what have we got? It brings us nicely on to the next one, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Third.
Next, I have actually got the players.
So this isn't recruitment, this is the current players that you've gone with. So just tell us about why this is such a big issue for you.
For me, I just think with the players that Manchester United have, we have a certain ceiling. I look at Arsenal, I look at City, and even Liverpool, and I don't think our squads are as good as those three, you know? And then I look at some of the players, I look at some of our leaders. Are they necessarily leaders in the moments we need them the most, you know? When I look at Bruno Fernandes, I think he's a...
You're a big you've got a big problem there, haven't you?
Yeah, I do, because I feel like, you know, in the big moments, in the time we really need someone to step up and drag us through the mud. We've seen Roy Keane, we've had these type of players. I don't know if Bruno Fernandes is that player. And I think he's a good player, but I just don't know if he's that player that steps up when we really need him. And I look at the game against Bayern Munich as well. I think he was awful against Bayern Munich. Do you know what I mean? And then after the game, he actually came out and said, well, nobody would have expected us to go to Allianz and fight for it. Yeah, what do you mean? What about all the fans that just travelled there? They didn't expect to fight.
I think that interview with Bruno is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think that's...
What do you think about Cam saying that...
I think Bruno's, like, one of your best players. Like, I think he gets too much... Well, he gets a lot of stick deservedly because no one really... If you're not a Man United fan, you don't really like him. But in terms of, like, his actual ability, he's the only one really who gets the assists or does anything. So I feel like it's the players around him that are not stepping up. I think if he just changes, like, attitude, then he'd be a much better captain and a better player. It's just his attitude. It might be a case of it just like radiates through the team.
It's interesting you saying that. What surprised me about that is I feel like there's a perception amongst United fans that Bruno is underrated from other fan bases. Every United fan I speak to, you included, raves about Bruno. And to be fair, we look at we have all the stats packs, and his goals to game, his goals, assists, penalties, his record.
That's Cam's problem, though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
is really strong. Yeah. So it's quite rare because it's usually United fans going, you don't see him every week, you don't realise how good he is, and other fan bases going, well, actually, I'm not putting him on a level that United fans do. So for a Man United fan to say, he's not your favourite player, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're quite
for somebody that
it's quite surprising.
90 minutes every single week, there's frustrations there, holding the ball, keeping the ball, retaining, calming down the team, moving forward the ball. I feel like often we look at the stats and we're like, oh, he's got all these assists and it's brilliant. But when you watch the game through a 90-minute game, Odegaard might not have as much as assists as him, or James Maddison and stuff. But personally, I know who I'm taking out of the three.
You would take out of
I'm
those
taking
three?
Maddison, I'm taking Odegaard, absolutely.
Even though Bruno, like, for me, like as a Man United fan, I suppose, like I just think that Bruno is like one of the few shining lights at the club. Like even when United have been at their absolute worst, Bruno Fernandes has been able to perform. Like I think if Bruno Fernandes was in a team that was much more coherent in terms of strategy and there wasn't so much turmoil going on around him and there was a consistent front line in front of him, and I think he would be even better. Like I'm not sure what much more.
Don't get me wrong.
Bruno
I'm not saying Bruno is the main issue in this team, but I don't think he's
4 goals. That's not Bruno's fault.
No, I don't think he's the main issue in this team. I think we have a lot of issues. I just think the player quality in general isn't where we want to be. Top 4. If we want to be a top 4 team forever, fantastic. This team is great. But if we want to actually push on and be champions and be where Man United should be, I just don't know. When you're holding on to players like Maguire, Lindelof, Eriksen still here, it's a little bit worrying for me. So I think Man United are not at the level, and a lot of that comes down to the players.
You've got to worry about the recruitment as well, because you spent more money than any other club.
Well read, Flav. I think in his magnet, he's going for the presenter's gig here because it's like you know.
Stop chairs.
So, in number 2,
Gary Flavel. Look at that.
I've got recruitment. Listen. Every manager that has been at Manchester United, once their NDA has been signed and finished, they've come out with all these stories. I wanted this player, I wanted that. The recruitment strategy, the way it's set up isn't good enough. LVG said it, Jose said it. The Oli interview just recently came out. And I guarantee if Ten Hag goes off one day, he's going to say the same thing, because we were linked with Kim Min-jae, we wanted Harry Kane, we wanted all...
That Harry Kane one's mad, by the way.
The Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think you saw it this week, but it's a very good point. Obviously pointing out to the fact the players that he wanted, Harry Kane, Haaland, he said Kim Min-jae, a lot of this. What do you make of managers doing that after...
The Harry Kane one I don't get at all, because they were saying that Harry Kane wasn't bought because he was too old, right? That's what they came out and said that. But then... He's guaranteed 30 goals this season. He was the perfect player for Manchester United. They did it with Robin Van Persie. They brought him in.
Under Solskjaer. But Solskjaer wanted Kane.
No, I think this was... we're talking here about the reports that came out referencing this summer. And
then Ollie was talking about players that he wanted when he was in charge.
Ollie was talking about...
So he just listed loads of good players. Of course he wanted those players.
This is the thing, isn't it? I feel like a lot of these things you've got to take with a pinch of salt. You know, obviously managers that haven't been successful are going to say, well, I wanted this. This is... Are we just seeing excuses from managers who didn't quite work here?
I mean, there is times where you could say that. There is, like, if they blame everything on that, then that makes sense, because you don't always get your first choice. That's understandable, but it's a recurring issue for Manchester United. You look at the way Liverpool under Michael, when they had Michael Edwards, you know, they had a DOF. That's when Liverpool were flying. Arsenal, they patterned their structure with Josh Kroenke to Edu to Arteta, streamlined. You look at Manchester City, they've got Khaldoon, Soriano Cheki, then Pep. Man United, it's like the Glazers to the manager. You don't really know what's going on there. Is it Richard Arnold? Is it John Murtough? Who's really involved in this signing process? And I've seen that Man United have kind of given the reins to Ten Hag to kind of pick his targets and get that. And I don't think in 2023...
What was that face for?
It's not going great, though, is it?
No, you should have...
It's not like...
In 2023, you're a head coach. That's just the way it is. And you have scouting networks. You have DOFs that are going to help you identify targets. And we've just given him the rein. But he said, hey, do what you want. And that's how we've ended up with some signings like Anthony, or some signings that people are turning around and saying, listen, this isn't good enough. These players ain't good enough for Manchester United.
Spent £2 billion on players since 2005. What is your thoughts on the recruitment of Man United? Not just this season, but in general in that time frame.
They need to just take a look at a club like Brighton, who are clearly doing the correct scouting of these players, and they're not just throwing money around, which is what Man United seem to be doing at the moment. They think they're Man United, they can just chuck a bunch of money and somehow get the best talent across Europe. But they actually need to be... But it's so odd, because of a club of that stature and that size, you'd think they are doing the right things, but clearly they can't be, because it's just not working, right?
Is it just a lack of, like, idea of plan.
Yeah.
It feels like it's
rudderless.
like going. It feels very reactive, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It feels like
Yeah.
a reaction to a problem. Sign a player that's a star. Doesn't quite. Whereas, what's the extended long-term
It's
plan?
not dissimilar. Obviously, everyone already brings it back to their own clubs, but it's not dissimilar to where Spurs were when we were signing people like Lo Celso and Ndombele, when it was Pochettino and Daniel Levy running the recruitment. As soon as Paratici came in, there seemed to be a structure to what we was doing. There was an idea. This is the way we're going to go. These are the kind of players and the profile of the player that we're going to sign. And it's been overall pretty successful. At United, there seems to be nothing other than, like you said, there's a huge chasm between the Glazers and Ten Hag. And Ten Hag is pulling the strings in terms of recruitment because Anthony was brought in for huge money.
And a lot of other Ajax players or Dutch players
He's known,
that he's worked with. Even Sofian Amrabat, who's worked with.
Everyone
he's
seems
good
to have
signing,
some form of links to Ten Hag or his agency, but not only with recruitment. I wanted to put the reason I have it so high as well is because of sales as well. I think I wanted to put that as part of the recruitment because Man United can't sell. Man United can't sell players. How we still have Maguire at the club, McTominay at the club, Lindelofs. These guys are being hoarded. It's like we can't get rid of them because of the massive wages that they're on. Man United can't move these players on. We moved on De Gea, we moved on Fred. But this was meant to be the summer where Man United, clear out, wow, fresh new blood into the team. And you actually walking into the season, it's the same players that we've seen under Jose Mourinho, that we've seen in the first season of Oli. And I got to put that down as part of the recruitment kind of process. It's just not good enough, man.
Okay,
Final one, the big one.
The biggest problem at Man United for you, Cam, is what you're going with?
The owners. I think every single Manchester United fan in the world have got to agree with me. You agree with me as well.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. I mean, the Glazers, it's been an issue since 2005, as you mentioned, since they've taken over. Everybody knows about the way they bought the club. You know what I mean? They bought it on loans. They put Man United in so much debt. And it's debt that Man United are still paying for now, until today. So, of course, when you're taking money out of the club and still paying yourself dividends, I mean, you just see what the fan reaction is towards them. And one thing that everyone's going to say is, well, you know, United weren't complaining when you're winning trophies. You look back, the green and yellow was still there when Man United were winning trophies.
Yeah, but there's one thing protesting and one thing wearing a scarf.
Yes.
Look, for the record, Glazers are 100% responsible for all of this because look at where they have the club now in terms of how good they are as a footballing entity and what they were when they took over. It's like two different clubs. They've riddled the club with debt, but they have provided every manager with all the money they could possibly need. And it hasn't.
But it's the club's money.
But does money mean support?
I
does money
appreciate
mean support, though? Money doesn't necessarily mean
that's
support.
rule one, I think, in terms of supporting the manager, is giving them the money they want to spend. That's what most managers would dream of. And I get it's not their money. They haven't invested anything. Man United are and should be the biggest club in the world based on the revenue that they generate. It's all their own money. But most clubs are like that. Like Daniel Levy and Enik don't put their own money.
But is it also a failure from them?
They're not good. They're not the greatest owners in the world, are they? They've got you guys doing nothing.
You were Enik out on
Are we? Is Spurs now the poster boy
What
of
are you saying,
great
Fred?
ownership?
You're saying you agree with the order.
We're talking about Manchester United. We're not talking about Spurs. Hang on. But I will say, look, you would swap Daniel Levy for the Glazers. Any manager would, right? Enik, if there was an option for Enik's model to be swapped from Tottenham to. But that's down to how bad Glazers are, not how good Enik is. We've won one trophy, one League Cup in 20 years under Daniel Levy. That's the main bugbear for Spurs fans. When things are going bad, people are very angry and Enik comes out. Now, there isn't a whisper of it.
So taking it back to Man United, you're saying you agree with the order, but you're saying that it's more complex than just the Glazers. Is that what you're saying? There's other issues that are...
I'm saying there's massive
from the top, man.
When a fish stinks, it stinks from the head, right? That's the saying. So
Fish rots, I think, is the phrase.
when it stinks.
Getting close. I'm not sure how it stinks.
I'm 100% right.
I've never heard of that.
But yeah, fundamentally, Glazers are responsible for all of this because they are the controlling element to Manchester United. But there are failings at every level. Every wrong decision, fundamentally, the buck stops with the Glazers, and the sooner they are out of that club, the sooner Manchester United returns.
Well, there is confirmation of Cam's 5 biggest problems at Man United in order. Let us know what you think of that at home. Enjoyed that, Cams, and it's good to get Theo Flav's take as well. Thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I think it's pretty
cool.
Eric, I'll be slightly concerned about Eric, but you know.
Yeah, I know.
Wait, so where would you put Eric? 5th?
Yeah.
He doesn't at the end of the season.
Let us know what you think at home anyway. Let us know what you think. Wow, big shout from Flav.
Thank you all for watching. Subscribe to the channel to not miss anything. Leave your like and your comment, that is very important for the channel growth. Until the next video.
Forever is the strangest thing.